contribution, where money is put aside, but what you get when you retire depends on the stock market or wherever it was invested, which is already a big change. On top of that, private pensions have been reduced. Many places, even where unions exist, will maintain the pensions of those older workers, but new workers being signed on will get less or no pension at all. Very common across the United States. What used to be true, but isn't anymore, was that public employees had secure pensions. There again, Stockton, California, pay attention, because you're the state in which this is now being fought out. Stockton declared bankruptcy, and it thought it could maintain the pensions of its former and current employees and basically use bankruptcy to not pay off the bond holders that had lent money to Stockton. This is a situation replicated in every city in the United States. The bondholders are now, together with the insurance companies that cover their situation, going into court in order to fight this so that they can become co-equal claimants on the assets of the city together with the pensioners. Translated into English, the people who credit, the lenders to the city, who are banks and rich people and big corporations, want their piece, and the only way they can get their piece is if pensions are not paid. So this notion that public employees have secure pensions is already over. The only question now is how bad it will be, how much you will be cut. And please be aware that pensions all over the United States, led by CalPERS here in California, but replicated in other parts of the country, are themselves already heavily invested in all kinds of instruments whose value is either unknown or very shaky. No one discusses this, but that is the case. Everyone who studies this stuff knows it. It's not clear that they can make the payments that they're legally obligated to do. And the question is, if they can't, as people's pension rights kick in, as you get to be that age, as you've done that many years service for the city or town that you live in, what are they going to do? The assumption has been the government will come in and make good what they can't pay. But at a time of national economic crisis, the government may not do it. In which case, you will get, because it's happening in Europe, we know it, you will get a letter from the pension that you depend on, informing you that they regret to tell you that you normally get $1,642 a month, but starting next month, you will get $812. They hope they will be able to come back in the near future and bring it back up. Thank you very much will be the end of the letter, and we wish you all good luck. Please learn to enjoy cat food. Well, that is where this is going. It's one of the many benefits and job dimensions that are being squeezed along with everything else. Last thing about the student loans. That is an explosion waiting to happen. Student loans are the fastest growing kind of debt in the United States. Last year, they surpassed the total amount of credit card debt in the United States, $1 trillion for the first time. So student debt has been rising quickly and has overtaken total credit card debt. And the reason is clear to see. Credit cards are mainly issued by banks. Banks in this country have largely become defunct. They're dependent on government support since late in 2008, when they all collapsed. We in America need to maintain the fiction of a private bank, so we do. But it's a private banking system that is depending on government support across the board. In another country, it would be called what it is, which is the socialization of banking. But we can't. So banks are cutting back on credit access. So families across America have discovered something. If you have a college-age kid, you can borrow money through his or her student loan that you can't borrow anywhere other way. So between what the students themselves have to borrow to go to school, because it's expensive, and the need for students to help the scarce credit that their parents can't get any other way, you're having an explosion. But as the questioner noted, under the United States law, bankruptcy can get you out of a mortgage debt, all kinds of debt, but not student debt. Student debt is specifically exempted by the law. You cannot get out of it. by declaring bankruptcy. It is therefore an albatross around your neck forever. And in a bad job market, as students are discovering, by the millions, students are discovering they borrowed like crazy in the hope of getting a job by becoming better credentialed, going to school. That was the thing they were told by everybody to do. They borrowed to do it, and they're now discovering they either can't get a job, or if they can get a job, they can't get enough money to be able to live while paying off those loans. That is a crisis for them, and a political opportunity for us of stupefying proportions. The backbone of Occupy in New York City, I can't speak, I was very close to them in New York City, I don't know whether it's like in other parts of the country, but in New York City, the backbone of the organization was people between the ages of 23 and 40 years of age, all of whom are having unbelievable job problems that they were never led to expect, associated with their debts, associated with the jobs and the incomes that they can get. They are a very angry, determined people, and they have the organizational skills that we need. The left has an opportunity with them. And now to finish with Occupy. Those were the people who made Occupy what it was in New York City. They were highly organized, very, very efficient. They may not come back in the form of calling themselves Occupy, but they learned lessons in organization. They learned lessons in having mass sympathy that will change the politics of the United States. If they take a year, may take 5, I don't know. But they are a very, very important breakthrough. Millions of Americans who thought they were the only person who thought this way discovered they weren't. Millions of Americans discovered that the mass of Americans, when polled, were sympathetic with what they did. They discovered in New York City that an approach to the unions made a difference. So it is a very powerful movement. Whatever else happens, it has opened the space for political work, created my audience, among other things. So I am deeply grateful. Last thing about unions. What should unions do? They've been on a 50-year decline, unions. The questioner was quite right. Less than 7% of the private sector in the United States is in a union. Well, we already can see an alternative because a union in the United States has moved very tentatively, very carefully in that direction. So I'd like to end by telling you about it. It's the United Steelworkers in this country, a big union still. The steelworkers of the United States announced a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, an alliance, very strange, an alliance with the Mondragon Corporation of Spain. For those of you that don't know, the Mondragon Corporation is a remarkable institution. It's a corporation that is actually a unified set of 200 or 300 co-ops, all of which are worker-run, worker-directed, where the executives are dependent on the workers, can be recalled and fired at the will of the workers. The workers make all the basic decisions, what, where, and how to produce, and what to do with the profits. It's extraordinary. Started by a Catholic priest in the Basque region of northern Spain in 1956 with 6 workers, and they now have 85,000 members and another 20,000 quasi-members, half employees, half members. That's a fight inside their institution. They are the largest corporation in the north of Spain and the 7th largest corporation in all of Spain. Anti-capitalist in the core and self-consciously aware of that. They are doing an alternative way of organizing enterprise. The steelworkers wants an alliance. The steelworkers does not say what's in their mind. So let me spin it out for you. Imagine a union movement that said, we're no longer just going to do collective bargaining, represent the workers to get a better wage, better working, the classic model. We're going to do that, but not only that, we're going to have a 2-track strategy. Our second track is we're going to start organizing workers into enterprises that directly compete with the company whose workers we represent in collective bargaining, in order to be able to say to the boss when we're negotiating, well, we hope you won't leave town and threaten us by saying you'll take the factory elsewhere, so we have to accept a wage cut. But in case you decide to leave anyway, here's what we're going to do. All of the workers you leave behind, we're going to organize into a company which is going to produce exactly what you produce in China now. The difference will be we will make sure Americans understand that they can buy this product from us, who are their fellow Americans, and not from the company that deserted. So you might want to think again about screwing the workers here. I leave it. And you might want to think again about lowering our wage, because you know we have an alternative, which is we'll just leave and we'll set, And maybe Mondragon, which has a 50-year experience in growing from 6 people in a co-op to 100,000, outcompeting the capitalist competitors they had to face all along the way, to come and make sure they can help set this up. What an interesting strategic change of the mentality. And what would it mean for a union movement that said we're not just about improving the benefits of workers in a particular workplace? We are part of a social movement to develop an alternative, non-capitalist system right here in the United States, to teach people what the difference is in working in an enterprise where you make the decisions, where part of your job is to run the place. Wow. What an interesting way for the union movement to recapture the role of leading a social transformation, something that has eluded them to their detriment for a long time.